Good. I know. I loved your lox, eggs, and onions the other morning, Bobby. My mom used to make that for me, and there's nothing like it when it's made right. It's got to be just a little moist in my eye, but everybody kind of mixes it up their own, you know.
It's got to be, and that came out probably the best I ever had in my life.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I took a half a giant red onion and minced it, and had this big pile that I caramelized first, added the lox, let it cook a minute, and that brings up the flavor. Take the whole thing off the fire, and then put your eggs in and soft scramble. And you got heaven. That's my recipe for the day.
You got
nice recipe for the day.
So are we in the green room, Doug?
We are. Good morning, everybody. Okay, great. Welcome to the green room.
Yeah, listen, so excited this morning to have, Bobby, Robert, Platshorn, Tuna, a million, listen, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but so thrilled to have you. Bobby is one of my original, most significant friends in this space, Ruta, and I'll let you can tell the story, Bob. We spent an hour the first time we met talking. Gentleman spent what, 31 years in prison? I don't want to over or underestimate, Bobby.
Let's not exaggerate. It was only 30.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The fascination that I had with meeting somebody that had such a joy and spirit in life as I first met him, I saw it the moment I met him. But explain to me how he kind of got through it. But I'm going to shut up for a bit and let you introduce yourself, Bobby. And last week's green room was interesting because Nate Eachus was with us. It was Super Bowl week. He was so psyched. He held up his Kansas City jersey and everything, and we never talk politics.
No, that day we do.
But with Bobby on today, I know we're going to get into a little bit of politics because he can't spend 30 years with our federal friends and not have some political feelings about what's going on today. So welcome to the green room, Bobby.
Welcome.
We live in the best of times and the worst of times. The best of times is we have cannabis medicine. When I got out of prison in 2008, there was California. Colorado was just starting up. And we were told Florida would be the last place in the whole world that would get it. When I got out, I started the Silver Tour. I saw after at 2010, when Prop 19 was on the ballot in California, it was defeated by about 6%. And that was the first real referendum for full legalization. And I knew that if it didn't pass, it would probably set the movement back anywhere from 2 to 4 years or more. And of course it did. And when I looked at the exit polls, I saw that it was seniors mainly that voted it down. And that didn't make any sense to me. I mean, that's my generation. We invented marijuana for the general public. I'll put it nicely.
You know what's great about it, Bobby? You've been a senior for a while. You look great.
Yeah, go ahead, rub it in.
What does that mean?
No, because he started this as what it means is that cannabis preserves to a certain extent that it's allowed him, even going through what he went through in his life, to be out with joy, teaching. I just wanted to let everybody know how significant it's been, Bobby, since you've been out. You've established things like the senior tour. Okay.
So, yeah, you just told us about this. Tell us a little bit about that Silver Tour.
Or Silver Tour, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry,
the
Bobby.
Silver Tour.
Right. Ruta does this every once in a while out of the green room because she knows she has to. Because the point is, on certain mornings, I'm so excited to have certain people like you in here, Bobby, because you've been an OG who's been out here from the get-go and has seen that wall of idiocy come down from 10 feet high to 1 foot.
I love what we have here now. And I love what we're going to have even better a year or two from now when we've got rec and when we've got homegrown.
You know what, Bobby? You're so optimistic about that. And I'm not quite as optimistic as you. I don't see the legislature in Florida moving that fast. I think in 2022, they may be forced to do something before the will of the people may take effect, but I'm not so sure about this year. And listen, I know you have issues like, let's talk about nursing home access, Bobby. And I know you go out and you give talks to senior communities, and you know, the fear that these patients have of not being able to use their medicine as they go into further type of living arrangements into the hospital itself.
That's changing. What's the big chain here in Florida? That's
Well,
building a
Morse Health,
program.
right?
Yeah, Morse Life.
Right, Morse Life.
You know, every one of these things, even though they don't go nearly far enough, the fact that we have them, that we've gotten them started, and the courts have been our friends. When we started, all we had was low THC, no flower, no edibles, a very restricted list of people you could prescribe for. And that's all changed. It's changed because we fought in the courts. It's changed because patients have started coming forward. And it's changed because our legislatures are scared to death. Seniors vote. When I saw Amendment Prop 19 go down in California, then Amendment 2 here in Florida went down. We lost it by a point and a half. And we lost a couple of years because of that. And that's when I really put my foot down to the pedal and started doing bigger and bigger Silver Tour shows. We'd go into senior developments where we had 300, 400, 500, 600 people. We'd come in with a doctor, Barry. We'd bring patients and give them a free meal. That's always very popular with seniors.
No, listen, I know things about you, Bobby, that the audience doesn't, but of course he was one of the original Ronco, right? Bobby,
I'm an old pitchman from the boardwalk. I
Yep.
made infomercials before Ronnie Popeil was even heard of. I mean, he and I worked on the boardwalk. We worked in the big state fairs and home shows. I was the first guy with the Ginsu knife. You know, you got chicken and ham, you carve turkey and lamb, you cut a cow in half with this knife, lady. And that's no bull. Lady come up this morning and said, young fella, I used to be. He said, young fella, well, that knife got thin. I said, bless your stingy heart, madam. If you had a knife like this in your house, one tomato lasts you all winter long, you stingy devil. And, you know, I'm an old pitchman. I was a member of Normal before I ever went to jail. I brought in undoubtedly.
Hold on, Bobby. Is there truth to that? Was Normal actually in existence in that era to that extent when
Yeah, it
tell the
did.
story of how things came down.
Back in those days, Normal had a board of directors list that covered half the pages. Doctors, prominent politicians, senators, actors, singers. It was amazing, and it had a little momentum right up until Carter's aide got caught with a little blow. Somebody told on him at the Playboy Mansion, and that whole movement for legalization just stopped dead
because of a cocaine incident.
Yeah,
That's interesting history.
Well, Carter had pretty much promised to legalize or at least to criminalize. And he looked like he was going down that road. It certainly looked that way to me, because that's when I decided it was time to smuggle in all the good Santa Marta gold I could get before it all became legal.
Maybe not such a good.
I mean,
what year was that? What year was that, Bobby?
You're asking the wrong guy about
okay,
years.
well, that's interesting.
So
listen,
what day of the week it is.
No, but it was in,
You
it
know,
was in
78.
in the 80s. Yeah, 78. Yep, in that era. And it's interesting. That
No, it was actually in the 70s.
I got it. But it's
It was
interesting
actually
that
in the 70s.
Another drug influenced cannabis policy, though, and I think we
I
continue
think they put that
to
all
see
in the
that.
same,
Well, they did.
yeah, they lumped it all
they
together.
did. There was
They
that
did.
war on drugs.
War on
and I
drugs.
think
Just say no.
Well, for
So,
sure. But one of the great things that Bobby's been able to do is to be able to separate cannabis from those other substances in his teaching as he goes out to the senior communities. And, very fascinating. I know you related stories to me about how you actually navigated your way through prison. One of the ways was he was actually the kosher chef in all of the federal penitentiaries that he was in, right, Bobby? That was one way that you kept
I
yourself
got
safe.
to order all the kosher food or kosher style food. I also ordered all the vegetables, so I had fresh vegetables. Had much better variety of food than most people. But I worked in the kitchen, and that was a reward for working in the kitchen. It was an amazing 30 years to get through. I don't look back on it with anger. I don't have, that much time left. I want to enjoy, and there's so much to enjoy now in terms of what we've done and what we've accomplished. And Barry, you were the first one. I worked with a lot of doctors in the shows. I was always looking for another doctor to come in and talk at a Silver Tour show and then help people get their cards. But you were the first doctor that actually, at least that I knew of, that developed treatment protocols as opposed to selling certifications. I mean, most of the doctors who jumped in were what I call pot dogs. They'll get, for enough money, they'll get you your card, and for some more money, they'll renew your card. But they had no knowledge of cannabis. They had to pass a state bar test that a child could pass
2 hours
with
long.
5 minutes of reading.
Yeah.
And I was actually surprised. I'm trying to remember where we were. You did a show for me. It was a fairly big auditorium. You had some of the girls from your practice there.
Yeah, it could have been Sun
And
City.
you outlined your protocols. And I was really taken back. I said, here's a guy who's really treating with cannabis and is helping us learn and understand. And then, of course, I saw the same thing from Michelle when I did shows down in South Florida. Dr. Weiner came and spoke. Guys like Mike McKenzie. And I've noticed that over the past 2 years, the three of you and a few others have actually gone to forums, have trained other doctors, have shared your knowledge. And to me, this was probably the second most important thing, next to legalizing. Because if you can't legalize, and then you can't go out and talk about it. When I started the Silver Tour, there wasn't one single doctor in Florida who would get up on the stage and talk about the benefits of cannabis. And of course, they all had the same excuse. The FMA, the Florida Medical Association, diametrically opposed. That's where a tremendous amount of our resistance came from.
Yeah. Still do. Still finding it, Bobby. Thank you so much for those words. That means so much to me. It does. And I'll be honest with you, I was able to do it because I was unencumbered by hospital system or other partners, and I was able to and had the voice to, very much like you, a pitch man in another way, working in the ER environment as I did. I was comfortable, and speaking in front of, people about something that I believe in. And I know both you and I do. And listen, how much more we know now, Bobby, about cannabis as medicine, about why it had helped, you through the years, and many, many others, myself and others that I know. We know so much more about why now. It's not just the THC, but all of the cannabinoids, right? And now, fascinatingly so, of course, and I know you love this when you present this to seniors, it's not just the smoking or the inhaling, right, of a cannabis product. It's the tinctures and the topicals, which are tremendous for seniors, the creams and the patches.
The first thing seniors always say is, well, I don't want to smoke.
Yeah.
And some of them come around anyway, because they remembered back in their college days when they would have a toke, sit around with friends, order a pizza, forget what they were talking about, smoke a little more, get a great night's sleep, And just that alone has allowed us to convert so many seniors, brought them over to cannabis, because half the seniors in this country are on Ambien or Lunesta, and they don't put you to sleep. They put you in a fugue state. You don't get any REM sleep. If you ever saw the commercial with the butterfly, they tell you you could walk in your sleep and talk in your sleep, and you might get in the car and drive in your sleep. I think it was Ethel Kennedy ran into a tree.
Oh,
She
yeah.
said, well, I was on Ambien. I didn't know what I was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
See what Kennedy did in a
And last of all, they tell you, you know, your tongue could swell up and you could die. About 150 seniors a year kick the bucket because they didn't remember they took the first dose. They're desperate for sleep, and they'll take another one. And therein begins the real problem.
Yeah.
All you got to do is remind them how good it felt. Take a couple of tokes.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, because the nature of intoxication in 2021 is interesting. And I say all the time, unless I can teach people how to whittle and knit and find other ways to unwind from a long day, right? That cannabis uniquely as a substance has been on the planet forever, and we're hardwired for it because of the endocannabinoid system, right? Questions?
Yeah, we
Great.
actually have some questions
Super.
from some patients this morning. And one of them is, do we have patients that have shingles and success with cannabis?
Well, we do, because both the inside out type of treatment, or that combination of THC and CBD that would go from within, but also the creams are very effective for those, you know, the topical post-herpetic neuralgias and things like that. 1-to-1 THC, CBD, ointment or cream, for sure. No, we've had unbelievable success with patients with shingles. You know, we never overpromise, and I think that's an important thing too.
It is.
It's the control. So if you ever had a senior patient come to you, Bobby, and say that they feel that they don't have control over cannabis, do seniors worry about the loss of control or the lack of control when they're using cannabis?
It's very common. And, you know, the first thing they'll say is, well, how about high CBDs? Because I don't want to get high. And I look at them and say, well, good Lord, why not?
See, that's why I need Bobby here, because those are the words, you know, right?
You want to
Yeah.
feel good. Why don't you want to smile? You know, high is maybe a bad term because it draws all kinds of pictures in the mind. And I've always looked for another word to describe. And all I can come up with is nice. Why don't you want to feel nice? Because
So
that's what it does.
So a unique part of Bobby's 30-some year history in the federal penitentiary was the ability every weekend to acquire a small amount of cannabis, right? And I don't want to steal your story, Bobby, but it's one of the ones you told me my first hour of meeting you that I'm taking to the, you know, right all the way with me to the end.
30 years in prison, I never missed at least a weekend where I could get like a little pin joint. $10. Originally, that's what we used to pay for a joint that today you wouldn't think it was one good toke. But when you've been clean all week and you got your weekend joint, you just cut little pieces off and put it in a pipe and just light that little piece and hold it in until there was no more. But it worked. And it was something to look forward to every weekend. Sometimes you had to go out hunting for a supply.
In prison.
I mean, even when I was in the hole. Now I've got a total of like 3 years of segregation time in the hole, which was actually a good place to relax. Takes you away from all the craziness. And
also read one book every week, right, Bobby?
I've read sometimes 2 or 3 books a day.
Right. Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, let me underestimate, but a lot of reading, and helped other prisoners with their cases, of course, when you could, and things of that nature.
Oh, I was a pretty good jailhouse lawyer. I got a lot of people sentenced reductions, got them transferred, got them early parole. I even help people get what they call prisoner exchange with Canada.
So listen, there's a guy with orange hair. There's a guy with orange hair living on your coast of Florida right now. That
We would hope would have
that
some
may
advice
need,
from you.
Hello.
that may need some of your services as a jailhouse attorney. You know, let's talk politics a little bit, Bobby.
Actually, I'd have been a better attorney than some of his.
Oh, that guy.
I love it.
Well, hold on.
I know what's with
I would
that.
like to recite a poem about a sailing ship. You know, or Bobby, what are you seeing right now in the entire political landscape from your unique perspective?
It just scares the living crap out of me. I mean, seriously, I never understood how he got the nomination,
I don't know either.
then how he was elected, and then watching the whole corrupt organization just come together. I knew about Trump from when he swam across with the rats across the East River and announced his arrival in Manhattan. He was going to teach all the old guys about real estate development. And of course, we know now he wasn't just saying old guys, he was saying old Jews. Because the people he really disliked. Anyway, and of course, he made a fool of himself. He built all these ego buildings, all these famous old buildings in New York, and then lost them all because he paid double what they were worth. There was no way they could ever produce enough money to make a profit. His father came, with 200 million bucks in a suitcase to try and save his casinos at a time when the only way you could lose money in the casino would be to lock the door and turn off the lights because they were still new to Atlantic City.
They were nowhere.
First one went down the drain.
It was a license to print money back then. The fact that he lost money.
It really was.
In casinos.
He managed to alienate and chase away all the decent people. He bankrupted half of Atlantic City because he wouldn't pay his bills. He didn't pay his contractors. He was stealing tips from the dealers and the waiters and the waitresses. And the same thing here in Florida. The people who work for him at his golf courses in Mar-a-Lago have sued him many times because, he only hires foreigners and then he sends them back before they can kick up a fuss. Most people don't realize it. He hires nothing but people from Eastern Europe or primarily from Eastern Europe. And they're here on a limited visa. And when he decides he doesn't want to pay him any more money, goes right on the boat and sends him back.
Yeah, it's been a criminal operation from the get-go. And I guess what stuns me at this point is, and I talk about the circles that fall around, conspiracy theories, and now him. What would have had to have happened on this assault of the Capitol for these senators who changed their mind? Hang on. So Trump said he was going to march down, Pennsylvania Avenue with them. So if he would have been marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, literally carrying a Trump flag, leading the parade on the way down, and this would have happened, would that have been one thing? If Mitt Romney wouldn't have been stopped and actually would have been harmed or shackled, or any of those senators or representatives.
Or Pelosi, I hate to think what would have happened to her.
My point is, what would have had to have happened for these Republican senators who can't see that every step of the way this was Donald Trump's malignant narcissism. But it's not
that they don't see it. I disagree. They do see it. You have to be blind not to see it. The problem
I can't get my mind around, to tell you the truth.
Can't either. How cowardly.
It's cowardly, but the problem is he has a rock solid, crazy base of some 30 million of them, and those are votes. These people are not looking at the protection of the United States. They're looking protection of their seat, and that's the problem.
And that's why Bobby said he was scared as hell. That's why Bobby said he was scared as hell to start the segment, and I am too, because I can't imagine how these. I don't think there's going to be 45 holdout Republican senators. I think there's going to be 40. I think 5 more are going to fall.
Could there be any more proof?
I know.
I mean, there's no.
They were there. They were there.
What more could there be to convince people? And yet you got guys like Rick Scott who tried to minimize the whole thing and said, well, they picked out one word he said about peaceful in the course of his speech, one word. And Scott married that and said, see, it proves that's all he wanted was a peaceful demonstration. And of course, that's absurd.
Well, he's also Scott's the king of
that he wouldn't march down with them. That's that's General Bone Spurs. He's not going anywhere near anything where there's jeopardy. He's been a physical coward all his life.
I thought the Democratic managers did a fantastic job, though, of showing how even before the election, okay, this corrupt, lying leader, okay, laid the plan early that the Democrats couldn't win unless this was a rigged election. He laid it out. He is the most masterful manipulator. Bobby, you and I have talked to this extent. This is Hitler, in my opinion. Sorry, everybody. This is Hitler with Facebook and Twitter access.
Oh, he is.
And they took his Twitter access away.
You know, according to his valet, he only owned 2 books in his life: The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich and a picture book of Mussolini, where he learned all those poses that he does. Those are the only 2 books there ever was in his house. I mean, know who you're talking to. Daddy was involved with the Klan, and Grandpa wanted to go back to Germany as soon as the fascists took over, and they wouldn't let him in because he was a draft dodger. You know, the family left Germany as fugitives, Trump's family. Grandfather was a draft dodger. And eventually he made a bunch of money running whorehouses up in Alaska, and tried to move the family back to Germany when things were changing there. And they told him to take a hike. And then Trump's father was in trouble with the Klan demonstration where he got caught and picked up. But the family's always.
But the problem is he appeals to almost half of this country. I mean, if you take a look, numbers don't lie. I mean, over 70 million Americans still supported this guy, no matter how much information there is against the guy, how much you can show videos, how much you can do anything, they still are voting for him.
I felt one of the most striking parts.
It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
I was struck by the use of the N-word, okay, on the front lines, okay, in the hand-to-hand.
These people are racist.
In the hand-to-hand combat. And I think there's been so little talked about the 2 officers that committed suicide, okay, for example, and the other officers that are going to have lasting PTSD. You know, I mean, you look at these officers, you don't really look at them as in a military type of circumstance, but when you see the lines being breached and talk about being flanked, I mean, this was a military, this was a military operation. There
was one guy, one of the officers, he was actually on the tape. And he was saying, he's heard on tape talking to his fellow officer saying, I've just been called in 10 minutes, the N-word 26 times or something. And he said, this is freaking America.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
I mean, it's crazy.
It goes back to Jose Belen. And you know, Bobby, we had Jose Belen on, and he speaks so eloquently about this specifically. He goes, what do we call them? What do we call them? What do we call these insurrectionists?
They're not American.
Right. They're not Americans. They were using the American flag to beat down officers.
They stand for everything that America doesn't stand
for. And if I hear Hillary Clinton brought into this one more time, I think I'm just going to vomit. I mean, come on. This was a malignant narcissist who somehow got control, and because of the ability of social media and weakness of other leaders who were complicit in allowing him to do it, and are going to continue to do this even after 5 people died. How can these people even look themselves in the mirror? And Rick Scott and Marco Rubio, let me tell you something. I hope we have a good candidate coming against you, because any good candidate is going to be able to point out the hypocrisy of watching. And listen, I can't wait to see what the former when the guy the other day started his, former President Trump's attorney started his whole address with calling him former President Trump. And then he talked about that the people were intelligent enough to make changes, and he did lose the election. I could only see Trump's head blowing off, at Mar-a-Lago, because he can't even call himself the former president. I can't wait to see what his attorneys are going to do for 16 hours. Bring it on. And I said,
I mean, that guy was so bad.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait.
And he did everything but present a case that would help Trump. But then again, there is no case.
There is no.
I think they almost want Trump to go to criminal court over it, quite frankly, Bobby, and take it out of the hands of these cowardly senators. And Georgia's already filed the case.
Yeah, Georgia has. And I hope Michigan does, and I hope Pennsylvania does.
It's not going to be the last.
Arizona does. I hope all those states.
We know New York has it coming. New York
has it.
Taking their time and building that case for a couple of years.
Years.
Those are the cases that don't have to do with what his malignant narcissism ultimately almost did to our country. And he hasn't given up yet. Believe it or not, on these idiotic QAnon sites, they're still talking about a March 4th thing or something, right, Don? I mean, I know you're in the background.
The QAnon people are still raging that they're going to take back the presidency. Yeah.
So, to me, ultimately, until he himself stands up and says, and I know he won't. So, like I said, we all got a lot of watching and waiting yet to do. I was so happy when he was gone that I thought he'd be gone, and hopefully he'll soon be gone out of all of our consciousness, because I got to give a heads up and a positive to, and we're getting our second Modernas today. Bobby, how you feeling? I know you had yours a couple days ago.
I had mine on Monday, and it went smooth as glass.
Good.
Tuesday, I woke up with a really sore arm and a low-grade fever. Tired, didn't feel like moving around very much.
It'll be tomorrow at the clinic.
Ate soup all day. Sent my guy Billy to bring me a quart of wonton soup, since I couldn't make my own chicken soup, which is what I usually do when I'm sick. I make a big pot of chicken soup, and had a bad day, but not horrible. Woke up Wednesday, felt fine. I knew by the end of the day I'd be a little tired and get a little low-grade fever. Of course, it usually comes back at night, and could hardly tell. And this morning woke up.
So tomorrow will be a rough day in the clinic, but we got the weekend to recover. Listen, what I was leading to is that, we do have the quiet competence right now of President Biden. And I'm thankful for that, because I think he's really setting the right tone, really not even paying attention to this. Can you imagine if it was reversed? Okay. And right. I mean, so as it is.
Nobody got excited about Biden, but he was the perfect guy for the job. No, he might not have been my first choice, somebody else's first choice. You still had a ton of Bernie lovers out there who didn't understand that even if he'd have been nominated, there's no way on earth
Biden's the only person
that president.
He did,
and I love Bernie, but Biden was perfect.
He was,
and he's proving himself. He's getting so much done. I'm so proud of when I feel bad, I listen to one of his speeches, and I feel better.
Yeah, and on the cannabis side, we have good things, and on the cannabis side, we have good things hopefully happening this year, right? With the MORE Act, and they've already had their meetings about how they're planning on, doing things at the, senatorial high, all, no pun intended, ranking members level. So it's great so far. Yeah. So we're all gonna, hope for the best.
We've got more legislation coming up than we've ever had in the past. I think most of our legislators are now reconciled that this has got to happen. Florida has lost a ton of tourist money to California, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine.
Those stats exist. I'd love to see those.
We have a tourist economy, and leave it to the business people to pressure, and leave it to the seniors to pressure. We're trying to get reciprocity. It's absurd that we don't have it. Half the other medical states have reciprocity. This is a place where millions come down here every winter and it's not their official residence.
Right. And you can't put the doctor in the middle of that decision. Patients deserve safe, legal, regulated, educated. Thank you, Bobby. Access to medical cannabis. Listen, we could have you on for about 2 hours. And listen, it's an honor and a joy to have you. And give a little plug to what's going on with you and your products, of course, because I know you donate.
As you know, Silver Tour, the live shows are paused until I can put an audience together. And the best audiences are the biggest audiences. Get the best feeling and the best results. The last show I did at Kings Point, we had 450 people. We had 240 sign up and get their card. Boy, did I feel good that day.
That's
I didn't put a nickel in my pocket,
right.
But I could see that we accomplished something. And that's what I love about the Silver Tour. Right now, I'm looking for a break in the TV and radio market so that I can put the Silver Tour back on the radio, cannabis facts from the Silver Tour, and back on TV. Should grandma smoke pot? You know, when they wouldn't let me travel, when my parole officer said you can't go out and do these shows, I just put it on television. Made an infomercial. We called it an edumercial, but it worked. Ran it hundreds of times before the election, and we got medical cannabis here. And the other thing, of course, is black tuna strain. I feel like I died and fell into a honey hole. This strain, when they offered to do it, and Truly said, look, you did so much for the movement. You've done so much to help Truly. They sponsored 2 whole years at the Silver Tour, every single penny, and not asking anything in return. They said, we want to do a strain for you if you want. And I described the original Santa Marta Gold, which I used to bring in, and became the mother strain for most of the good medical hybrids in the country today. There's a little Santa Marta Gold in there somewhere. They're master growers.
Johnny Appleseed,
It took them a couple of tries. And then one day I got a jar with all kinds of labels and security. And this is, and every time a bunch is harvested and gets to the stores, it's gone in an hour or 2. First, the phone orders. People watch that website, the Trulieve website.
They
what
do.
They
They
have
wait
that
for your
day,
screens, Bobby.
and they start ordering over the phone at like 6:30 in the morning. Then all the stores I visited, the bud tenders all told me, look, as soon as we get black tuna, we get ours first. All the bud tenders, they all put aside a jar or 2 or 3.
Well, I hope there aren't too many patients watching. They'll get mad at those Trulieve med tenders. Yeah. But you give proceeds away, Bobby, which I want to make sure you make, you
well,
get back.
I'm 78 years old. I don't want to go play the stock market. Trulieve gives me a nice royalty, nothing, Empire State Building size, but a nice royalty. And my greatest joy right now is giving toys for tots. I filled a couple of whole rooms with toys, thanks to Trulieve's royalties. The royalties go to the Silver Tour, which is a nonprofit. And I've donated a lot to the food drives, because the idea of a kid not having something to eat.
From a guy who was incarcerated for 30 some years. And that's why we love you, Bobby. And we thank you so much for being on.
And fishing.
Yep.
Fishing.
And fishing too, of course. Oh no, right. Look, I will make the drive over to the other coast just to spend an afternoon with Tuna bending the rod.
I arranged a boat for 420 for our lifetime prisoners who were released. If it all comes together, I got the boat set up. I want to give them one hell of a 420. Bring in all of our lifers who got released. that's my project for the next month.
Good
You got
project.
it.
Very good. Thank you so
Stay
much
healthy,
for being
Bobby.
on today. We appreciate you being on, and thank you everybody for tuning in. See you next week.
Loved it. It was fun. I got plenty of good stories for you next time.
Oh, I know.
Sounds like a plan.